Okay, we're ready.
Good evening. I will call to order the Appearance Review Board meeting on March 3rd, 2026. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'll do a roll call. Good evening. Member Bokum? Bokum? Jonathan? Oh, I'm doing roll call. I'm sorry.
Present.
Thank you. Chair Grimes?
Present.
Vice Chair Gill?
Present.
Member Ryan and Member Jenkins are absent. We have a quorum.
Is there anyone present who would like to speak? I will close the floor. We will now do the approval of minutes from October 7th, 2025. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes? Can I have a motion?
I move that we accept the minutes via common consent.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The new business is 320 South Club Street, non-residential fencing design review.
Hello, okay, just want to make sure. Okay, I'm Sarah Masterson, Town's Contracted Planner. Today's case is the 320 South Club Street, and this is for commercial events. The address is 320 South Tub. The parcel is about 1¼ acre. It's zoned commercial C1, future land use commercial, and it's within the urban corridor design district. The intent today is to review the proposed commercial fence. This is an aerial image giving you a view of the property. This is the northwest corner of Tub and 50. The town's code states that fences visible from the right-of-way must be decorative and require ARB approval. And is to be accompanied by a 3-foot-high hedge. The fence and walls are limited to 6 feet in the side and rear and 4 in the front and side street yard unless otherwise approved by a town planner. The applicant is proposing a 6-foot-high privacy fence around the existing parking area located to the north of the property. It's intended to screen fleet vehicles associated with the applicant's intended use for the property, which is to be an administrative service office or a restoration company. The proposed fence shall be set back sufficiently to accommodate all the required plantings. This is a proposed conceptual plan. The gray box indicates where the proposed fence would be located. This is for conceptual review. And then this is a survey of the property. South Tub is on that right-hand side, and Colonial is to the south. The applicant has indicated that this is their proposed design for their screening mechanism for their fence. Consistent with the town's land development code for a proposed 6-foot-high fence, it would screen the commercial vehicles from public view and advance the code's intent while providing an appearance that is prominent urban corridor property. The proposed fence material is consistent with the permitted fence types in the urban corridor and is compatible with the surrounding areas. The appearance review board is limited to the commercial fencing, and all of our site elements are for reference only and will be reviewed separately for code compliance. The town staff have reviewed and finds the proposed fence substantially compliant with the town's land development code and the design district requirements, and we recommend approval. Are there any questions?
No questions. I do agree and go along though with the height being 6 foot to mask the commercial vehicles. I mean, that's kind of more unsightly than a 4-foot fence, so. And them sticking with the color codes of the fence and making it a nice looking fence. I think it's okay.
The applicant is here.
The applicant is here. If you have any questions for him, just let me know and we can call him up. Do you want to say anything?
Thank you for having me this evening. My name is Gilbert Mohamedou. I propose to purchase the property and I propose to improve how it looks from today. I recognize that it's a nice thoroughfare through downtown Oakland, and I'd like to contribute to the community.
Thank you. And I know we're just here for the fence.
Yes.
For a comment. You're going to redesign the building too?
I'm going to be reskinning the metal building and then painting.
To make it look nicer than it looks now?
A lot nicer than it looks. Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do any members have any further comments?
I'm good.
Can I have a motion?
Wait, Chair, excuse me, can you open the floor for the public hearing?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Is there anyone present who would like to speak on this item?
Okay.
Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the proposal for the commercial fence on 320 South Up Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We'll now discuss the Turnpike Commerce Park, 16360 West Colonial Drive, design review.
All right, so this is for the Turnpike Commerce Park. It's at 16360 West Colonial Drive. It's approximately 14 acres. It's zoned industrial general. It has a future land use of industrial, and it is within the urban corridor design district. The intent today is to review the Turnpike Commerce Park Industrial Flex Space project. This is the site map showing the location. This is to the south of 50, kind of in that nook of the Turnpike and 50. This site does have a previous approval that was approved in 2001 for a self-storage facility. That approval contained 9 buildings with 164,000 square feet of building, and today the Turnpike Commerce Park is intended to replace that approval. The project is comprised of 4 single-story industrial flex building spaces. It's approximately 40,000 square feet per building, totaling 160,160 total square feet. The buildings are oriented north-south with the building end caps facing west to Colonial Street and the Florida Turnpike. This property will be accessed via a narrow land of property that is going to be dedicated as right-of-way to the town. This was the original site plan that was submitted. The applicant has brought in paper copies of a new site plan. The change is the row of parking to the furthest left side of the site plan. They have increased their stormwater capacity there and reduced some of their parking. The applicant is here tonight, so they can speak to that if you have any further questions of why they made that change. These are the elevations of the proposed building. These are some floor plans of the buildings. The Appearance Review Board can make recommendations on dimensional variances to the town's design requirements, special exceptions, or variances. The review proposes to ensure that they conform to the design standards provided in the town's land development code, and the applicant has provided a list of requested variances for consideration from the ARB. The full description of these changes are in the staff report that you received, but this slide provides a quick summary of the requests. The applicant requests to forego the landscape buffer wall between the properties to the east, which is residential. This parking requirement is changing based on their new plan today. So the applicant is requesting ARB to approve their parking methodology, in which they are now requesting 216 spaces, and that calculation is based off of ITS standards for industrial uses. The second deviation the third deviation they would like to request is the town's code does limit the building footprint to 32,000 square feet. The applicant is requesting 40,040 square feet per proposed building. The fourth deviation that the applicant is requesting is the orientation of the buildings. Typically, the town's code requires those to face the street that they'll be fronting, and the applicant is requesting to orient north-south, given their location setback away from 15. And the final deviation the applicant is requesting, the town's code requires a 30% fenestration, and when we scale, the applicant is approximately proposing 8% of fenestration for their building. The urban corridor district is intended to support attached mixed-use development near the town center and permits larger buildings in the most intensive transportation corridor areas. The approval of the proposed Turnpike Commerce Park would enable industrial flex space that supports job creation near two major transportation corridors. Based on these considerations, the staff finds the proposed Turnpike Commerce, including the requested deviations, fulfill the proposed intent of the urban corridor design district. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
And therefore, the town staff recommends, approval, and we find this substantially compliant with the requested deviations being of sufficient ask. We recommend approval.
Oh.
So next happenings, once you guys make your recommendations, this will go to the Planning and Zoning Board. That will occur on March 17th. And then the Town Commission will hear the recommendations from both boards at March 24th meeting. If approved, the concept plans will also serve as the design for the final engineering review and permitting process. I think that was it. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer. The applicant is also here if you have questions for them. Did you guys want to speak at all? Okay.
So my name is Drew Thigpen. I'm with Greenberg Gibbons Properties. We're a real estate group that focuses exclusively on the development of this shallow bay light industrial flex product. We developed it in the Carolinas, Texas, and now this is, we hope, our first foray into Central Florida. It is a use designed, exactly as Sarah said, to support smaller, typically local service-oriented businesses. So think 10, 12,000 square foot tenant. This is for your plumber, your electrician, your window supplier, all those job creating type of businesses that don't really have this type of product, at least none of it that was built in the last 40 years, because most of them are in old, outdated spaces. They don't have the functionality, they don't have the aesthetic that they want. It's kind of been overlooked as a product from a development standpoint, as people have only been focusing on the development of the large bulk product that Amazon takes. So that's what we're trying to fill. And we thought this location between 50 and the Turnpike would be a perfect fit for what we do. So happy to answer any questions that y'all have.
So this would be visible from Highway 50 and also the Turnpike. Is that correct?
Correct. They're I guess probably 70% plan right eastern side is somewhat shielded from Turnpike because of there's already a screening wall there. But yes, you've got visibility on the northern side, which we like, and then kind of if you were going east on Turnpike, you'd be able to see in, and once you get past that screening wall, turn back, you can see it.
So we can come at this bit by bit.
Okay.
Because you guys are also asking for no brick wall.
For no brick wall. Yeah, that was one thing that I wanted to make sure was clear. There's
But
still
that's
gonna-
part of that was part of the LDC. And the first secure site storage, that everything was approved back in 2021 for that.
Right, what we're proposing is not to get rid of the landscaping buffer. There will still be the landscaping buffer consistent with what was previously approved. We won't have the wall, which wasn't in what was previously approved.
Okay, so, and the reason for not having the wall was in case there's any residential building going on to the east of it?
So the wall wasn't in the previously approved plan. So we're consistent with that. And the reason why we think it's justifiable is because this is going to be redeveloped in the future into a commercial use, and having that kind of floating wall wouldn't create the type of connectivity that most of these commercial areas really desire. And then you'll notice from the way we've oriented the site, our what we call front of the buildings, which have the brick, they have the large storefronts, they have all the architectural elements, those do face east. So it's not like there's gonna be industrial aesthetics that face the current residential property.
Okay, so there's no residential property right now, right?
Right now, there's a single family home there.
Through the woods, off of 4th Street.
Yeah.
So there's a big buffer between 4th Street and y'all's site. What I'm getting at is the land development code did call for a 6-foot brick wall around the whole thing. I don't know if that was part of the 2021 agreement, but if it was, it should stay for the most part.
Yeah, it was.
Like the part fronting 50, it should still be a brick wall. Because even if you do put landscape buffers, like live plants, it can die. That can go away. It has to be maintained. The brick wall doesn't. So, I mean, I can see not having the brick wall fronting the turnpike, but on the east side and the part facing 50 should still be a brick wall.
Sorry, that was a lot louder than expected. I do want to jump in and just say that the wall requirement is only between the residentially zoned properties and this property. So that would only be the property to the east.
So it doesn't have to be facing 50.
Correct. And there are 2 parcels between this property and 50. So the frontage of this property is only that narrow strip of what's going to be dedicated right of way.
And just to reiterate, there wasn't a wall in the previously approved plan.
Okay,
So we are consistent with what was previously approved.
all right. So let's talk about the building orientation. So then, does it have to stay parallel to 50 like it was in the 2021 agreement with secure site storage or secure self-storage?
Yeah, so.
Now it's turning, so that's a complete turnaround from what was previously approved.
Yeah, so this product operationally, functionally, it needs to be oriented. We tried to see, I mean, we would love nothing more than you drive along 50 and you've just got our building the whole length of this. We couldn't get the circulation, we couldn't get the loading bays, all of these operational specifics that the product would need to be viable. So we looked at it in this orientation, and kind of to Sarah's point, given that it feels like this parcel fronts Colonial, because right now nothing's in front of it, it doesn't. There are two parcels in between us. It's set back, I think, 200 or so feet, and we do have brick, we do have windows along those end caps. So think it's defensible to orient in that way, and I actually think that it helps with, not to kind of jump ahead, but with that 32,000 square foot maximum floor plate, the fact that these are oriented in that way avoids this huge mass,
Right.
because it's actually, you know, perpendicular to your
Mhm.
eyesight, or it's parallel to your eyesight.
I do think that the problem with locating the buildings perpendicular to West Colonial is that the front of your buildings, it's not really visible. So what's visible from West Colonial Drive and also the Turnpike would be the end caps, which to me are less designed. I think you do have the brick and you do have some aluminum storefronts, but I think it could speak more to the human scale. I think there could be more character and more style aligned with Oakland's design standards.
Okay. We have in instances like this where those end caps are kind of more front facing, dress them up a little bit, and similar to like we have those 3 pane storefront windows, they're kind of our brand aesthetic. We build this exact same thing wherever we go. It is kind of our brand. We have added those to the end caps. So basically where you're seeing just single windows, if you were to, make those the 3 pane window storefronts, we've done that to kind of add a little bit of that aesthetic flair. Is that something that you think would make it more acceptable?
I do. So I actually went today and I printed out the design guideline manual from Oakland's website, and it has some suggestions for the style, a big emphasis on the human scale, but also it lists suggestions for the character, such as decorative cornices, masonry surfaces, ground floor storefront glazing, and upper fenestration made up of multi-part double-hung operable windows. And obviously we're not gonna have all of those things, but I think we could have more that speaks to the character of what we're trying to have in Oakland along the end caps. So I would suggest that along the end caps, we keep the 30% building fenestration required by code. And also more of an attempt to keep to the standards of the design guideline manual.
Okay. I think, we can review that. I think in just listening kind of what you ran off, I think we're pretty consistent. We've got the masonry, we've got ground floor storefronts once we add in those storefronts. The scale component you mentioned, these, due to the operations that I mentioned, these have to be 24-foot clear. We can't really shrink them down, so that pedestrian scale is just a part of this product. But the way the buildings are oriented, I think perceptually does help with that, and the canopies and some of the depth that breaks it up. But we can absolutely add the windows to hit that threshold.
Because that was a serious shrinkage from 30% window penetration to 8. It's almost like there's just going to be just slivers of glass and not the 30. I mean, the code was made for a reason. We're supposed to try to stick to it as much as possible. If y'all are going from like 30 to 25, I mean, it's like, what's the bigger about? But from 30% to 8% of the viewable facade, that's a lot.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
I don't disagree. We love glass. I know that industrial isn't incredibly common in Oakland. We typically, when we go through these ARBs in other towns, get rounds of applause for how decorative this product is, and I know it doesn't really matter. Like, y'all go to your code, and it shows in a lot of the development. This product, from a budget standpoint, typically doesn't support more than what we're doing. We already have to press it, and that's why we can generate the highest rental rates for this product. But understand that it is an extreme deviation. So would it be okay, given that what we were mentioning, the majority of these buildings really can't be seen from Turnpike, there is that screening wall. If I'm just thinking about moving numbers, if we took the windows from Turnpike and put them all onto Colonial, now we've doubled the amount and we can do even more than that. But is it really Colonial that everybody wants to focus on?
In my opinion, I don't know about the other.
Well, so there's a wall between the Turnpike and the site.
There's one of those sound walls. It goes about, I'm just guesstimating, it might be shown on the survey, probably 70% of the way down. It doesn't go the whole way, but it does cover a significant amount of it.
Well, those walls though are probably like 15 feet tall, and this building is 30 feet tall.
Yeah, but you're like 10 feet away from them, you can't see anything. Not even. If you just think of like the angle,
Right, okay.
not even close. We could, like I said, survey, we could like pull up Google Maps right now if we wanted to, just get a feel for where it is.
I think maybe we could propose that anywhere it's visible from a main street, the fenestration requirement is met
Okay.
of the 30% required by code.
Okay. I think that's something we can probably get to. And we'll come up with some sort of sketch that shows where that visibility starts and stops.
Okay, so probably to move on to another concern, because I wanted to cover the fenestration too. The parking. The parking was, we were given numbers in our packet. Approximately 20% of each space would be dedicated to office space. And you wanted one parking space per 200 square feet of office space. So, but what's to stop a tenant coming in and saying, I want 35% of my space to be office space? But parking has already been calculated at 20.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a mixed use space for, these businesses you're talking about. Well, they're going to be coming in and out all day long. You could run into a parking problem. So I think we need to, I think it needs to be capped at how much can be converted to office, and the parking spaces need to be able to accommodate. I know you guys have lowered the parking spaces too, and I understand, I can see that it's because of the rainwater, the retention pond. The warehouse space, I can see, and I know how that can, you might have 2 workers, or you might have 10 people working in there. But it's the office space, if you keep it at 1 space per 100 square feet, that's gonna give you, that's gonna probably help out a lot more with the accommodating parking spaces for your whole site.
Yeah, so,
Sorry, do you mind if I
Yeah, go
go in
ahead.
real quick? I do want to add that with this updated site plan, they're actually changing their methodology from what was in the staff report. So they're actually changing their methodology to an industrial park use, and that calculation is based on an ITE land use. So that's the Institute of Transportation Engineers. So what they're requesting is for you to approve their methodology for how they're calculating. So I did just want to mention that they are changing their methodology from what was originally in the staff report. So it's not the 1 space for 200 square feet of office and then the remaining warehouse space. They're now transitioning to a full, just like industrial park use calculation, and they pulled that from the ITE standards.
yeah, so a couple things to add to this, and again, it's a conversation we have every time we come before any town, because one of the challenges with this product type is there's no clear-cut definition for it in most ordinances and a lot of design standards, because it is kind of this hybrid between warehouse and office. What Sarah mentioned is this 1 per 1,000 square foot. That is based on established data from industrial parks. It includes in there the supplementary office required to support those industrial operations. So what you're talking about, which is what a lot of towns kind of think of, okay, well there's 5% office, 10% office, 15% office, how much office are you gonna have? We don't know the answer to that as a speculative project. We'll find out when the tenants come along. That office is always a supplemental use to their warehouse and industrial operations. So you would never have, and I can actually speak directly to this because just a bit of a backstory, one of the reasons why this product hasn't really been built in a long time is because most people that built it kind of fell into the trap that you're talking about around office creep, because somebody wants to take 10% office, 50%, 20% office, the rent keeps going up, and so on paper it looks great. And then in 10 years of owning this, you turn around and you got 90% office because you're a call center, and now you have single-story suburban office, and who wants that right now?
Right.
And so it is part of our mandate from our capital partners, from our lenders. Most of these cannot go over 20%. That's just how we came up with that number. We can't lease to more. We will not get the project when the deal's approved. But it's just kind of what we, like Reagan said, came up with. This ITE standard is an accepted, international traffic engineering designation for this is the amount of parking that industrial projects need. And so I think it's a good metric to kind of base what we're providing off of. The town's metric of 100 per, or 1 per 100 square foot is respectively wild. I mean, that's like Whole Foods, maybe, probably more. That would be 1,600 parking spots.
Right, that's
for
what we
this.
saw, and that is a big deviation.
Right, but it's a deviation for something that is, it's just wild, like, that is not even rooted in anything reasonable. Again, respectfully, I think it's just a result of there not being a lot of industrial here in Oakland. And then, in regards to the removed parking, like you said, we took it down. That was not trying to get credit, that was not our idea. We're developers, when we see green space, it's like, hey, pave it, why not more? But our civil was adamant, hey, we gotta make sure that we're sufficient here in the stormwater permeability. We do not wanna be increasing impervious, so we kind of begrudgingly let that go. We'd love more office, I mean, not more office, more parking, we hate office. We'd love more parking. It was kind of all right, let's give on the parking in order to get more stormwater, thinking that that's what the town would want to focus on. And we just, last thing, gave it Mike, so I'll use it. We build, like I said, this exact same product everywhere. We always do this exact same configuration of a double row of parking along the front. And at every single project, it's sufficient, and in most, it's wildly overparked. These are not active sites from a front of house standpoint.
Okay. So with, okay, so we're making recommendations to the P&Z.
Yeah.
So that will be one of the recommendations, is to put a cap on how much office space can be built up. So you don't go, somebody doesn't come in years from now and make a call center. Or take 70% of that and they're gonna need more parking. I mean, they're gonna, some sort of a cap has to be put on for office space. And like you said, somebody might come in and they may only need 5% of that. Small office, a lot of warehouse. So it's gonna balance, but it needs to balance somewhere so you guys don't run out of parking. And it doesn't become so congested back there that it's a pain for other tenants too.
Right, so the one thing that we've done, and again, these are not heavily trafficked areas, but we've also, in our mind, and in what we've had success with other towns, is we've got this entire sea of pavement behind these buildings. If we ever did have a parking issue in the front, we can always just strike the rear and add extra. So we don't want to over park it in the beginning and just have this sea of pavement when we already have that
Right.
in the rear.
So right now it's a dry pond, so that means it can be developed into parking spaces.
You have to talk to the technical. I don't think so. I don't think that.
Well, I mean,
that's.
well,
I think he's saying that you could park in these,
and
like right now it's for truck deliveries, I'm assuming, but if you had overflow parking, I guess people can park.
Oh yeah, you were asking in the loading. Yes. So right now that loading is exactly like I mentioned for operations, for deliveries, for receiving and shipping out of product, equipment, whatever. But if we have a tenant that, hey, I can only get 10 parking spots in the front, but I have low delivery operations, can you pay for them in the back? That's what we've done regularly. It's kind of this, it's almost like built-in overflow.
So this isn't meant for businesses who have a lot of customers coming in and out, right?
Next to, we have, thinking about it, we have a custom home builder who has like turned their space into a showroom. I think of our 60 or so tenants, they're probably the only one that receives any sort of visits from their customers. This isn't a retail type of function. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I guess you could just drive to the plumber, but usually you call him, email him, and he comes to you. That's kind of what most of these guys' businesses are.
And so for the businesses that you're thinking of, like plumber, electrician, are they businesses that have a lot of employees? Or like how many people are in the space at the same time?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if we ever tried to quantify the people in the space.
Just to give us an idea of like how many people are coming in and out.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, we've never had an issue with parking. So I can say definitely less than our metric, which is usually around 1.25 per thousand. So there's less than that many people in the building. Typically the only time we'll see something even close to a peak is morning, evening. Like think rush hour. A lot of these guys drive up, they park their car, and then they either grab the van, grab the equipment, grab their chemicals, their tools, their whatever, and then they're off for the day. They're in market, they're providing their service, and then they come back at the end of the day, drop everything off, drive home. These, for the most part, are not ghost towns, but they are not really active throughout the day. You'll have, support staff. So if you have accountants, if you have salespeople, they might be there. But most of the workers are out on the market.
parking, do you wanna make any suggestions for it?
Well, I was only going by what I was reading in the packet we were given, alright? And going by that, it's wildly off. But you brought something else up, and is planning and zoning going by that as well? Or are we going to say okay on something and they go, what were these guys thinking? They may not know what they're talking about. So they're gonna get the same information about the formula used for the parking, they're gonna go by that as well.
Yes, so your approval of this plan will ultimately be what they have to use to get their permits. So if it doesn't match, we would call that out. So
But-
this methodology
Yeah.
is.
You'll update the packet for planning and zoning.
Yes, we'll update the packet for planning and zoning to reflect this paper version that you received today. And then this is what would get approved, when they come for building permit, site permit. They would have to follow this site plan with the, methodology for parking that you guys would either recommend or, recommend conditions.
And we do apologize for getting this in last minute. Like I said, it was sort of a internal back and forth that I ultimately lost, and so we agreed to get rid of the parking in favor of more stormwater.
Right. Well, there was another thing about the, the building size. Now, I know overall, going from 9 buildings to 4, it's actually less office space. There's less warehouse office space. I think it's like, I forget exactly how much I wrote it down, but it is less. It's like, instead of 164,000, it's 160,000. But you're also going to increase the building size by 8,000 square feet. And it's economically viable for y'all to do that. I get that. But that also takes away from any parking spaces. So if there's an issue with the parking, if the buildings were smaller, less tenants, more parking. So I don't know exactly how that formula works, but if that's the formula that is going to be used, I mean, if we were given that instead of the land development code that we were given to read and study, there wouldn't be an issue about talking about the parking at all. So,
Is it possible, Sarah, to speak to what y'all typically see in industrial? I mean, again, I don't want y'all to think that I'm like misdirecting you, but 100, or whatever metric is, 1 per 100 square feet is like wild.
well,
And-
but it was also 1 per 100 square feet of office space, and then 1 per how many square feet of warehouse space.
I don't think, is that right?
That was the methodology that they were proposing for you to accept.
Well, no, I was just saying the baseline code requirement for industrial is 1 parking space for every bay, plus 1 per 100 square feet, correct?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
So it's a total square feet, which again is, I don't know of a good comparison, it's wildly excessive. And so we're trying to propose something that is more consistent with what we see. And again, apologies, our first pass was kind of, hey, we think this will work, but it felt a little like just guessing,
Right.
like we're saying 20%. We're now saying, okay, this is established ITE, this is industrial, you could go to a traffic engineer and he'd say, yep, that's what we would peg this as. So it felt like a better metric.
All right.
Everyone, I'm sorry to interrupt. I had a real quick question for staff. Could you point me where in the LDC that particular 1 per 100 square feet for industrial is in the code?
Yes, it's section 412.1, 4.12.1.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when I was reading it, there was I guess, an area that I had to try and understand, that when it was 1 per 100 of overall,
Yeah.
Or one for two, y'all are saying one for 200 of office space, which is 20% of the total space, and then one per bay, and then there's also like one every 2,400 square feet,
That,
2,500 square feet.
you're kind of speaking to the concern, it was like a whole bunch of like math, and we were like, hey, this one number is a whole bunch of traffic engineers and taking data, historical analysis, and that's what they came up with, which is a simpler, easier metric to come off with.
Okay, so on the paper that you guys gave us with the staff comments on the parking. So the applicant is proposing 255, which it's now 216. Based on their submitted parking calculation of one space per 200 square feet of office space and one space per 2,500 square feet of warehouse space. And we're still going with that? Is that the ITE?
No, the IT is this revised, it's the 1.01 spaces per 1,000 square feet, and it does what we tried to come up with. It takes into account, based off of past industrial projects, the fact that it will have a mix of warehouse, it will also have supportive office, and all of that, when you combine it all together, regardless of how much is office, how much is warehouse, it equates to 1.01 spaces per 1,000 square feet.
So you guys are probably not looking for a cap on the amount that can be converted to office space?
I don't.
Because that doesn't matter with this new calculation?
So, no, I mean, the new calculation says industrial is the prime use, so the office is supportive, all of that is reflected in that 1.01. In the development world, in any sort of, land ownership world, you don't love restrictions, and because of the presence of that built-in overflow with the loading court, we don't think there should be any restrictions as if there was a tenant, and again, it's incredibly unlikely it would ever happen. We can't even do it. It would be down the road, like you said, some other group
Right.
wants to do it.
Well, that's the thing. We approve it, or if it all gets approved for you for what you're, and down the road it gets sold to somebody else who just says, well, I've got an open door to do whatever I want.
Yeah, and they've got that overflow parking available to them if they want to strike it. And I mean, if they are a landlord and they're leasing it and somebody needs 50 spaces and they've got 20, I'd like to think that they wouldn't want a project that isn't functional. It wouldn't be leasable. So some of this, the market forces will dictate what you can lease to. This couldn't support, 100% office. It's designed in that way to limit that.
Okay. Well, that's just why I think there should be a limit at some point for the P&Z to consider.
Can we do that? Can we specify the future tenants of the building? Can we say some certain percentage has to be office space?
Or can't be more than.
That's a legal
Yeah.
question. Do we have legal?
Wade.
Hey Wade, did you hear
Yeah,
that
I'm here.
question?
Yeah, I did. There are avenues, there are ways to accomplish such a thing. I don't know that in its current posture as it's coming through, this is not coming through with a development agreement along with it at this point, is it?
No.
It's not, no.
Okay. I would tell you that even if a provision like that were implemented in some sort of development agreement, the actual implementation of that and enforcement of that would be an administrative nightmare. I very rarely see such things among municipalities that we represent, because you end up in situations of chasing that as you go down the line. generally what you end up with when you get into larger projects along these lines, oftentimes when you've got your parking requirements that really are tuned more to an individual, discrete, and singular, smaller use, and when you've got something, just a large project like this, or a shopping center, say, where you don't know exactly what the different uses are that will be going in a shopping center at a given time and so on, you end up relying more on industry standards that would give you a typical average of what the actual parking demand would be, which is an example of that would be the ITU numbers you were hearing there. So that's usually considered the best practice professionally to deal with that issue, rather than locking that in and making it an administrative nightmare for decades and decades to police that, rather instead to rely on industry standards that focus on projects that look at an average of uses to make sure you have adequate parking. I hope that helps.
And then I would like to also go back to the floor plate, square foot maximum. So we're proposing an increase of about 8,000 square feet per building. I do think that we should stick to the code required 32,000 square foot maximum. For the same reason, like if we accept the variance on this building, what's to stop variances of like any square footage coming in to Oakland? I think that the code requirement is there for a reason. So I would suggest that we stick to the same 32,000 square foot maximum.
And we would love if that was the case. The project's not viable at that square footage. We just can't get the yield that we need in order for it to pencil. So if we were to limit to that, then we have to just, thanks but no thanks. We wouldn't be able to get the returns that we need in order to make the project work.
Unfortunately, I know business needs to be business, and I totally understand that, but when the land development code was originated, and they came up with 32,000 square feet for a reason, we don't know what reason, and like April said, if we go ahead and say, oh, that's fine, go bump it up, then that just sets a precedent for everybody else that wants to come in, and they say, okay, you have the land code, or you have these regulations, but that's not what we want. So it needs to be changed at a level before it gets to us. And if that is the acceptable amount of space, then we can't say no. We can't say we don't approve it. We can't say we don't like it because it's there. I mean, you're allowed to build up to 40,000 square foot. So there's no problem.
Yeah, I understand. We recognize it's a variance. If none of these were variances, then we wouldn't be having this debate. And the way we think about this, and I don't know, Wade can chime in. I'm pretty confident that no decision around a variance establishes any sort of precedent. This is kind of towns and citizens representing the town's ability to identify projects they want that don't fit within the neat box that you try and make, like you said, years before when you establish these ordinances. And so we think that this is the type of project that is desperately needed in Oakland. It creates local jobs, it creates a significant tax base, but it doesn't fit within the ordinance box. And so it does need variances. They don't establish any sort of legal precedent. Somebody comes in the next day and says, we want a 400,000 square foot industrial. Tell them hell no. It is the way to try and fit things, if the town wants to, within, a box that can be a little limiting, as you never know when you put these ordinances together what's actually gonna fit on any given parcel years down the road. Is there something to just, again, not to dive into and critique the nature of a code, but if this parcel was narrower but longer, and we could fit 10 32,000 square foot buildings, that would be significantly more square footage. What's the aversion or concern around limiting based on floor plates? I guess I could understand we don't want to have more than X amount of total square footage within a project, but kind of chopping it down into building specific, do you know what the kind of rationale for that is?
Well, I think my concern was, if it's a code requirement, why we put it in the code in the first place if it's not something that matters at all? That was my concern. Do we have any other questions?
Okay, so you say you need additional economies of scale beyond the maximum 3,200 square feet. Is that because of the return on the investment, or the rent that you can get? Could you charge a little more for the vehicle, or is that not the economically viable part?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to that's kind of real estate 101, just make the rent higher and the pro forma works. That's not really defensible. The market is what the market is. We get a real premium. The rates that we're underwriting to will be well beyond anything anyone can point to as a current comp. The reason that it doesn't work is, if you think about land, we're paying X amount of dollars for the land. That doesn't scale relative to the amount of square footage. So if we have that fixed cost, but we've now lost, whatever that math is, 20% of our yield going from 40,000 to 32,000, well, your costs stay the same, but the amount of rent you're gonna get went down 20%. We can't get the returns that we need in order to make it viable.
I mean, it's kind of a quandary that we are in. I mean, of course, we want businesses to come to Oakland. We need it for the tax base. We do. We need businesses for the tax base. Going ahead, I mean, I guess we either approve or disapprove of it going to P&Z, or we just send it to P&Z with our thoughts on it, and we have to let the subsequent commissions and boards make that determination. We can I think if that's possible, we can let them know that we don't agree with going from 34 to 40, but we are glad that you are going to make the fenestration facing 50 the full 30.
So,
We do want that.
so you have some things that you can do. You can deny approval, you can approve with conditions, or you can approve outright, right? So if you approve with conditions, then those conditions go, like Sarah said, to planning and zoning, and they take them into consideration.
So one of our conditions could be that they limitations about the square footage and parking? Or like, how would you word that? How would you do that?
So you could make a recommendation with approval based on what you would like. So you could approve with the recommendation that the applicant meet the standard or whatever standard you would like. So if you are uncomfortable with the size that they're requesting, you could approve with the condition that the applicant reduce to meet the town standard. And then that would be presented to the planning and zoning for their consideration, so they would know then what your concern was.
So-
Or what you would like to see it.
Well, with me, I mean, it kind of goes with what I started to say earlier, that the total square footage has gone down. There were more buildings. But if we're gonna go, is it ITE or ITU?
ITE.
ITE. Okay, if we're gonna go by that parking, I'm okay with that, I understand that. So I'm good with that. But then I'm also good with the fact that there's less square footage that you're working with than the previous plan. So I'm okay with going from 32 to 40, as long as planning and zoning goes ahead and they approve it, and then it goes to the commission. But I also think that our code has to be changed before it even gets to us, to give a maximum of more than the 32, so that we don't have discussions like this, and we don't let developers come in and have to spin their wheels and try to do all kinds of stuff to make things happen.
Yes, the town's code, though, has a variance process for this exact case, where a client or a applicant comes in with a product that doesn't fit the exact confines of the code, and they presented to you why and reasonings that they think are justifiable for their requests, and then it's up to you to determine, do those make sense? Can we live with that? That's the authority that you're granted in allowing this deviation.
Okay, so we're allowed to hear variances like this and approve them. Does that mean we're locked in by setting a precedent for anybody else?
So that approval is specific to this project. It won't run with the land, so if somebody sells it and they want to tear this down and do something else, they would have to go through a whole new review process. So it's not going to be setting a precedent necessarily going forward, because every case is going to have to get their own approval and be reviewed by you guys.
Yeah, and just to reiterate that, as the developer was alluding to as well, and as your staff just indicated, granting variances on particular pieces of property don't set a precedent either for that property yet, if it were to get redeveloped many years from now, or for other properties from a legal standpoint, for other properties around the town. If you end up evaluating another project, and based on the totality of the circumstances of that other project, it's located in a different place, it's oriented in a different place, it's got different characteristics and so on, and you looked at it and said, no, in this instance, it's not appropriate to grant a variance to exceed the maximum floor plate thresholds, that would be very defensible. Every single one of these projects is going to have unique factors, and you look at those unique factors.
What about, then this is for you also, what about setting a maximum conversion to office space for each bay or each unit? So that 100% or 70% can't be opened up to be a multi-employee business. Is that something we can do?
It's I'll put it this way. It's not something I would recommend as a viable tool to accomplish that. If the concern is about parking, because that I think is what
Yes.
that would be tied to. As I suggested before, the industry standard way to address concerns of mix of uses among projects that are anything larger than just a single one-off use, is to look to standards like the ITE standard that you heard there to get that industry average and use that as your guidance to lock in what your parking is there. When you get into the minutia of trying to restrict precisely how much each building or the entire site goes from office to warehouse or all these different things and so on, it truly becomes an administrative nightmare for the town that it's a very difficult feedback loop to enforce it. And I'm just sharing this from practical experience in some other cities where similar things have been put in as conditions in the past, and it ends up not necessarily being needed to solve the problem, but becomes an administrative nightmare. So ultimately, one could conceive of a requirement like that being put either in the final DO or more likely in a development agreement. But I'm just giving you some advice from experience that while it may sound good, the operationalization of that down the line is the juice is probably not going to be worth the squeeze, if that helps.
And I do want to clarify, this process is a little different than some cases that have come before you because those were PUDs, they had development agreements in which we could put certain conditions in. This is a straight site plan architectural approval with no development agreement. So we don't have as much leeway and latitude to put those conditions in because we don't have that development agreement that's enforceable.
Yeah, and in particular, one that would have to have, as opposed to just a mere, development order approval condition, this would have to have a whole enforcement mechanism and feedback loop all put together on how you do that, which it's not as simple as just saying it shouldn't be more than this. Okay, what happens when it doesn't? And you have to work through all those things when you have a condition like that, again, which is where you have a project like a PUD with a development agreement where you get into pages and pages of that explanation. And again, as I was saying before, that is the professional and industry purpose of these traffic and parking engineers, industry estimates like the ITE, to be able to cut through that complication of those mixed uses to get you to a number that, based on past studies, will provide sufficient parking for use of a mixed facility.
So where would you want to go from here?
So I think that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that we're gonna approve with the condition that the 30% building fenestration required is met on all end caps that face a major highway, along with building elements that speak more to the character of the town of Oakland design guideline manual on the end caps. And then also with the suggestion that the floor plates are limited to the code required 32,000 square foot maximum, but that would be voted on by the P&Z, but we're offering our suggestion.
So you would whoever makes the motion would motion to approve with those conditions if that's what they agree with.
And Chair, please, we need to open the floor for public comment before the motion.
Is there anyone present who would like to speak on this item? We are closing the floor. Do any members have any further comments? Can I have a motion?
All right, I will make a motion to accept it, the proposal given to us with the condition that we stick with the 30% fenestration on on the end caps facing the turnpike and 50. We will accept the buffer, the landscape buffer, considering that it was approved in the original plan that was presented in 2021, and that we do have concerns with the 32,000 square feet. We'd like to keep it like that, but we'll come back to planning and zoning to make the vote on going to 40,000. Yeah, that'll be my motion.
Second.
One quick clarification.
And just to make sure staff has clarity with regard to that motion, except for any tweaks or modifications that you had in your motion, sir, it's approval consistent with staff's recommendation. Is that correct?
Approval
Approval
consistent,
with conditions.
yes.
Yes, because there was, in the PowerPoint, there was a list of a number of conditions or a number of variances. You discussed a few of them. And so I gathered that your intention was everything we have here, but with the modifications that you made.
Yes.
Correct. We're all right with the orientation of the buildings being turned. We're accepting the parking spaces per the ITE. And the landscape buffer, as long as it was approved in the initial 2021, they approved it without the brick wall, so we'll accept that. We would like to keep it to 32,000 square feet. We understand the variance. If planning and zoning and the commission is okay with that, we're okay with it.
And one further question for clarification, when you indicated the 30% fenestration for end caps, I believe you said facing 50 in the turnpike.
Yes.
Would it be more accurate to say end caps visible from 50 in the turnpike?
Yes. Right?
Okay, all right. You just wanted to clarify that for the record. Thank you, sir.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. This meeting is adjourned at 7:53 p.m.
Thanks, Wade.
Have a good night, everyone.